Here comes Grim. Hello lovelies, welcome to another comments and updates and housekeeping video. I know you're all desperate to hear how my health is doing, but still adjusting again to medication. I can move around. I am posting photos when I hobble around the village for my stoutness exercises, so if you like seeing a small fuzzy gnome, and no I don't mean me, being posted in various places around my village, you can follow my Instagram or Twitter or join the Discord, all of which should be down below. So yeah, it seems to be helping, sending the weight in the right direction, strengthening my back, which helps with the pain, which is now mostly in my back. So I don't know, yeah, planned obsolescence, I guess. Us Nexus 5s just don't really hold up very well past our inset date. I've been using pictures, not of me, but of AI's weird interpretation of descriptions of me more lately, rather than necessarily defaulting to the covers of whatever it is I'm reviewing. Instead, I've been trying to put together something with a sort of common visual thread running through it and showing more human faces, mine at least, through a AI filter. That is supposed to be better for clicks and engagement. I don't know. Do you find it confusing or helpful or not? Or don't you care? Or do you want to see even less of my ugly mug? I don't know. Let me know. Patrons still haven't given me any sort of feedback on what they would like as their patronage bonuses. So for the time being, I will continue with monthly discounts until morale improves. But it would be useful if anybody who is a patron or would consider becoming a patron would let me know what they would want in exchange for becoming a patron. I'm willing basically to give half a day to a day every week to stuff for patrons at this point. The Machinations project continues apace. I'm extremely nervous about whether this will be a success or not, but I've certainly found some good professional people, but that's no guarantee of success. So we shall see, but yeah, look out for issue 0 coming out soon, which is going to be quick start rules and an adventure outline of some sort in order to try and gin up some more interest in Machinations. I have caught up on my other freelancing work and so on, so I am once again my own master, which is nice. But of course, I immediately decided to help the OGGM with layout for his Goblins combo platter that he's putting together, combining all of his previous Goblin games for Shadow Dark and other D20 derivatives. So that's what I'm working on at the moment between other projects. I am not sure whether there will be a Tabletopless tonight or not. I think not, because I think it's the weekend of the Alt-Star Awards. So that would mean that Richard and Cherry are away doing that. And there may or may not be a game next week because other obligations that people have. I also don't know if there will be an Inappropriate Characters this Sunday. All three of us are a bit bushed, and we've been casting about for a guest that would give us something to focus the episode on, but finding people who aren't afraid to air their politics and positions in that context is tricky. And of course, a lot of people I know are away at UK Games Expo, and yeah, it's difficult. So it may be a largely non-streaming weekend for me, other than the T-Shirted Historians show. Alright, on to comments. On the Swedish OnlyFans ban, Polar Bleed says it's because Sweden is full of misandrist feminists. They're like the type of feminists Anita Sarkeesian was before deciding being friendly with swerfs like Gail Dines or Jermaine Greer. The J.K. Rowling treatment would get her cancelled by the NPC woke mob. But you'll probably find a way to blame the right for this. In any case, reposting more artwork of half-clad maidens drawn by straight white male gooners would be welcome. If you really want to prove you're not selectively Puritan like most leftards today, censorship is much more at home on the right than it is the left. There are various tested and confirmed psychological reasons for this. The right tends to operate more on disgust, so that's part of the reason. And I would regard these kind of feminists and so on that you're talking about as being very small c conservative. Much like the anti-trans lobby. Just look at the people that they have formed alliances with and you start to see what's going on there. Describing them as left-wing doesn't really fit with left-wing philosophy. If you take a step back from what is going on and you decide to compare the philosophy of left and right against the actions of groups that are claiming adherence to one ideology or the other. And this doesn't make sense in terms of left-wing analysis, at least not with straightforward left-wing analysis. You should be much more likely to find left-wing people, and certainly left libertarians, taking the side of sex workers, adult workers, free expression, all of that. One of the biggest failures of the American centre-right, otherwise called the left in America, has been the ceding of the ground of free expression to making it a pretend right-wing issue. But then if you look at the actions of Trump in regard to other people's free expression, it becomes pretty obvious that he doesn't give two tugs of a dead dog's cock about free speech. Just his speech and the speech of his allies. So, World Peace 21 says, how will they enforce this law? They would have to look at credit card statements. This should terrify people. The Swedish authorities should not have the right to go through people's credit card transactions. Okay, so this relates to something that is going on in the UK. And you see similar sentiment in the US and elsewhere. They want to police what we spend our money on if we are in receipt of benefits, certainly, but this will almost certainly spread, right? So they passed a law that allows them to check on people's accounts, currently with, due suspicion and all the rest of it. But they're taking that power unto themselves, and this may happen or already have happened in a lot of other countries, usually on the excuse that they're sniffing out welfare fraud and things like that. In the US, you see this similar attitude around things like SNAP, food assistance. They don't want people spending their food assistance money on, I don't know, Count Chocula cereal or whatever else, because they should only be spending it on essentials and good and worthy things, and they should never be allowed to ever treat themselves ever. It's a similar attitude, and that's the excuse they use to be able to snoop, and then they snoop, and then mission creep comes in. As far as the Swedish go, they would probably just tell Swedish ISPs operating in Sweden that they must block these sites, which savvy people can get around with a VPN, and to refuse transactions coming from Sweden, and they may fine the site that's causing the issues for them, and this will go beyond OnlyFans. But so there's plenty of ways they can enforce it, not necessarily all working, but they make everyone's life more difficult, and that is often enough. On the White Death unboxing, Paul Berry says, the last big ticket board game I purchased was the XCOM one. I gave it away as a Christmas gift. The recipient cannibalized the game for bookshelf decorations, and we never played the game. Was that the one that used a phone app to track stuff, or was that a game with a similar theme? I'm not sure. I think that is the ultimate fate of a lot of these kind of things. I love Descent, and never get to play it. I've played it a few times to a small extent with people, but it's such a big, complicated game to set up and to play that you have to devote like a day to it. It's not easy. What else have we got here? That's in the wrong place. Let me just move that. Okay. On an older review on the comic books Valerian and Laureline, which of course got turned into the movie City of a Thousand Planets, Whitney Darlin says, well, posted an essay, but I think it's interesting, so I'm going to read it here for you. I'd like to make a pretty strong point here that Japanese manga is based off of Italian comics. Valerian is French. Anyway, if you remember how strong of allies Italy and Japan were pre and during World War II, they were two of the three countries, the other one being Germany on the Axis powers, so they set up extremely favourable trade laws with each other. And because of that, the governments really encouraged Italian goods in Japan and Japanese goods in Italy. And after World War II, Italy and Japan were the only countries standing on their side. They were both in basically the same situation, on the losing side being occupied by the winning side. But they were allowed to keep their good and favourable trade laws to each other, since we also controlled Italy. And then, when they were finally able to retake control over their countries, they maintained that friendly attitude and those friendly trade laws. And that's why Japanese manga and anime is so reminiscent of specifically Italian comics, and why many Japanese anime were dubbed into Italian and subbed into Italian before English, if they are subbed and dubbed into English at all. It's why Italian luxury fashion and specifically leather goods have always been majorly popular in Japan. There are some fantastic leather workers in the modern day that are Japanese and creating luxury and designer leather goods like purses and shoes, etc. People don't realise just how much of a permanent impact World War II and pre-World War II had on the world, and is still having on the world. There are many Japanese artists and writers and creators who refuse to have their work translated into English at all, and will never have their work translated into English because they still, in this day, 2025, believe they were wronged in World War II somehow. Which is fascinating and interesting. I've always drawn the links between Japanese comic culture and French comic culture, but not Italian. Conventional wisdom, and I think this is backed up by the history, is that anime and manga were primarily influenced by Disney, which is why the whole Big Eyes thing is present from the earliest Japanese animation, really. But the Italian side to it is something I've not heard of or considered before, so that's interesting. Thank you. On Daggerheart, Jolly Roger says, "Oh Grim, how I wish we could see your archive. Do you have it well organised in proper British bookshelves? Hope that someday you can give us a virtual tour. That would be a great video, in my opinion. Speaking of recently iconic books, or at least popular ones, I don't know if you have or have heard of Knave by Ben Milton, heard of. Easy D6 by D.M. Scotty, heard of. Land of Eam by Ben Costa and James Park, not heard of. And I haven't read any of them. As to my archive, I have taken shelfies before, but I currently have more books than I have bookshelves. So it's a bit difficult to show everything off. And it's not as organised as I would like it to be because things have to go where there's space. But someday, maybe. Also on Daggerheart, Patch something, says, "It always surprises me when people complain about there being too much content included. In this case, why would too many ancestries be an issue? If you don't want to play with all of them, simply talk to your party and limit it, but otherwise it's extra content. Maybe people just don't like options. I often hear others complain that Shadow Dark is getting too many classes also. What amount of player options would make people happy?" So, for me, what it's about is it's about the expectations and the world being presented that these things create. If you put out a standard fantasy game but include 50 varieties of furry, that says something. It's not just a generic fantasy game at that point. It is at least furry adjacent. Too many choices causes something called choice paralysis, which a lot of foreigners going to the States for the first time encounter, typically in a cereal aisle of a supermarket. There's too much choice. It's too much to take in. It's too much to process, and you don't know enough about the various options. Right? So it is a problem. When it comes to Daggerheart, it's the baseline assumptions that it creates about the multiple settings and about the game. And it's also one wherein racial choice has been de-emphasized, redefined to be ancestry. So most of these things are really distinctions without a difference. And that is a problem with a lot of modern game design, I think. You include all of these things, but they don't really mean anything. This is perhaps most egregious when it comes to disability, but I think it applies to all of these other things as well. So it's not that choice is necessarily inherently bad, it's about what the choices that are presented say about the rest of the material. Choice paralysis, and does it have a meaningful application? Can it be replicated in another way without adding bloat? So that's the issue. Let's see, what else have we got? Oh, let's have a blast from the past with some Kalergi comments. Liebuster, ironic name, says, a few questions for you. Who controls the creation and distribution of money? Well, that would be innumerable national banks and private banks around the world in the control of various different moneyed interests and national governments. So a lot of people, many of whom have competing ideals. Who controls the media? Well, no single person, really. No single group, really. There's government media out there. There is private media out there. And these days we're all media machines ourselves with our smartphones and our blogs and vlogs and everything else. I'm part of the media. So, nobody controls the media. The media is a huge amorphous thing. Some people dominate, but it's a mess. Who controls prestigious universities and academic communities? Oh, some are private, some are public, so different national governments, different private institutions. So, again, a chaotic mess of people. And who controls BlackRock? The many, many investors and holding companies and so on that are invested in BlackRock. So, again, a chaotic mess. Now, I know you want people to think international jury, but no, it's just not. Also on the Kalergi plan, Brinjar says, are you stupid? Just take a walk around London. Well, I don't visit as often as I would like these days, but I know London pretty well, and I've spent a considerable amount of time in areas of London that are more ethnic, like Brixton and the Asian community in Finchley. What am I supposed to be seeing exactly? People keep saying this. The problem is obvious. What problem? A brown person? Oh no, I'm terrified. I don't think these people know their own mind. On the Jewish porn conspiracy, which I did a video on, Daryl Seeker says, blah 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 blah, no dates, no names, no facts, just a Doctor Hook lookalike. Well, thank you. Spouting a conspiracy theory about conspiracy theories. Don't waste my time. Dig deeper. Facts, facts, facts. Well, there were facts. I dug into the main claims that people make, like MindGeek being Jewish owned and all of this, and there's just no truths or facts to it, really. That you don't agree with the facts is your own problem. Reality doesn't care. A rather confused person or a dishonest person said on my video about Trump setting his sights on the trans community, he said Trump is a bloated Nazi pig. That being said, I'd still rather live in a Trump world than a Troon world, which is obviously a slur against transgender people. But this from someone called Stormwolf. That's a pretty hefty dog whistle, wolf whistle. That you are actually a fascist and you're trying to distract and mislead people. As to Trump, he does look like old wartime caricatures of Goering. So, thanks for putting that image in my head. Zang.
Sure, you could play one of those hoity-toity horror games where the most horrifying thing that happens is someone wearing a corset who really shouldn't. Or you could grind a zombie's face into a belt sander.